The golden cage Valentina Reed stared at the 5-carat diamond on her finger as it caught the morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse apartment. The ring was exquisite, custom designed by Harrison Wells himself, with a clarity that matched his precise vision for their future together. It was perfect. Too perfect, perhaps. Ms. Reed, Mr. Wells's assistant called to confirm your fitting at Elise Couture this afternoon. Shall I send the car at 2? Valentina's personal assistant, Josephine, stood in the doorway with her tablet in hand. Yes, thank you, Valentina replied automatically, though the thought of another wedding preparation made her stomach tighten. 6 months until the wedding of the decade, at least that's what the society pages were calling it. Harrison Wells, tech mogul and venture capitalist with a net worth of $11 billion, marrying Valentina Reed, the brilliant architectural designer who had transformed skylines across 3 continents. Their engagement had been a whirlwind. They'd met at a charity gala in Singapore where Valentina was being honored for her sustainable urban development project. Harrison had approached her after her speech, not with the usual platitudes, but with specific questions about her integrated water systems. His intensity had been magnetic, his intelligence undeniable. Within 3 months, they were engaged. Valentina wandered to her drafting table where blueprints for their future home lay untouched. Harrison had purchased 1,000 acres overlooking the Pacific. "Design us something extraordinary," he'd told her. "No budget constraints, just pure vision." It was an architect's dream commission. Yet here she stood, pencil in hand, unable to draw a single line. The intercom buzzed. "Your sister is here, Ms. Reed." Moments later, Camilla burst in, bringing the scent of coffee and her characteristic energy. Unlike Valentina's polished appearance, Camilla's curly hair was pulled into a messy bun, her jeans ripped at the knees. "I brought reinforcements," Camilla said, holding up a bag from their favorite bakery. "You sounded weird on the phone." Valentina managed a smile. "Just wedding stress." "Bull," Camilla said, setting down the pastries. "I know that look. It's the same one you had before you walked away from the London project, even though it would have made your career." Valentina sank into her chair. "The London project wasn't right. I would have been compromising my values." "And Harrison?" Camilla asked quietly. The question hung in the air. Valentina twisted the ring on her finger. "He's brilliant, generous, driven. That's his resume, not a love letter." Valentina looked out at the skyline she loved. "He's planning to expand into Southeast Asia next month. He's already purchased the land and wants me to oversee the development. And I was going to propose a community-centered approach with affordable housing, integrated into the design. When I mentioned it, he said, 'Let's focus on luxury properties first. Philanthropy comes after profit.'" Camilla raised an eyebrow. "And that bothers you?" "It should be both, always both." Valentina's phone chimed with a message from Harrison. "Meeting running late. Dinner at 8 instead of 7. Wear the blue dress. The investors from Dubai will be joining us. No question if she was available, no request, just expectation." "He's not a bad person," Valentina said, setting down her phone. "He just sees the world differently." "The question is," Camilla said, taking her sister's hands, "can you live in his world?" Valentina looked at the half-designed dream home, the blue dress already laid out by her housekeeper, the calendar filled with appointments she hadn't made. The golden cage was beautiful, but it was still a cage. "I don't know," she whispered, voicing her doubt aloud for the first time. "I honestly don't know anymore." The breaking point. The Wellington Hotel's grand ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the glittering jewelry of Silicon Valley's elite. Valentina stood beside Harrison, her crimson gown a stark contrast to his impeccable black tuxedo. They made a striking pair, the architectural visionary and the tech titan, as they accepted congratulations on their engagement for the 100th time that month. "You've outdone yourself with this venue," whispered Senator Thompson's wife, squeezing Valentina's arm. Harrison mentioned you're handling all the wedding preparations personally. Actually, Valentina began, but Harrison smoothly interjected. Valentina has impeccable taste. She's designed our future home as well, a masterpiece. His arm tightened around her waist as he guided her toward another group of investors. 3 hours later, as their limousine glided through the night, Valentina stared at Harrison's profile. At 42, he was 12 years her senior, his temples showing distinguished touches of gray. His jawline remained firm, his posture impeccable, even after a long evening. The Saudis are interested in the neural interface project, he said, scrolling through his phone. I've scheduled a meeting for next week. We'll need to postpone our weekend in Napa. Harrison, Valentina said quietly. I didn't design our house. He looked up, brows furrowed. What? The house you've been telling everyone about. I haven't designed it. I haven't drawn a single line. Harrison pocketed his phone. You've been busy. After the wedding. No, Valentina interrupted, her voice stronger now. It's not about time. I can't see us there. I can't visualize our future together. The limousine slowed to a stop outside their building. Harrison studied her face, his expression unreadable. You're tired. We'll discuss this tomorrow. That's exactly it, Valentina said, feeling something break loose inside her. You're not hearing me. You're managing me like one of your projects. For the first time that evening, Harrison's full attention settled on her. Let's continue this. Upstairs. In their penthouse, Valentina kicked off her heels and poured herself a glass of water, her hands trembling slightly. Harrison loosened his tie and studied her with the same intensity he brought to business negotiations. What's really going on, Valentina? She took a deep breath. I can't marry you, Harrison. The words hung in the air between them, irretrievable. Is there someone else? His voice was controlled, eerily calm. No, God, no. It's... She twisted the engagement ring. We want different things. The way you handled the Southeast Asia project, overriding my concerns about displacement, that was business, he interrupted. Our personal life is separate. But it's not, Valentina insisted. Not for me. The way you see the world, maximizing. Profit first, considering human impact later. It's fundamentally opposed to everything I believe in. Harrison's expression hardened. I've built my empire by making difficult decisions. Sometimes compassion must be secondary to progress. And that's why I can't do this. Valentina slipped the ring from her finger and placed it on the marble countertop. The small clink seemed to echo in the vast space. I would lose myself trying to fit into your vision. Harrison stared at the ring, his face a mask of control, but Valentina could see the muscle twitching in his jaw. She braced herself for the explosion, the famous Wells temper that had reduced CEOs to stammering apologies. My legal team will arrange for your relocation, he said finally, voice clipped. I assume you'll want to return to your former apartment. Valentina felt a wave of disappointment wash over her. Even now, he was treating their breakup like a business transaction to be managed efficiently. Harrison, she said softly, I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. He turned away, reaching for his phone. I have an early conference call with Tokyo. Please ensure your things are removed by the end of the week. As she left the penthouse that night with just her purse and the clothes on her back, Valentina felt equal parts grief and relief. The cage door had opened, but freedom felt heavier than she'd expected. 3 days later, as Valentina sorted through books in her sister's guest bedroom, her phone lit up with Harrison's name. She almost didn't answer, afraid of his recriminations or worse, his cold efficiency. But something compelled her to accept the call. Can we meet? His voice sounded different, hesitant, almost vulnerable. Just to talk. No pressure. No lawyers. Valentina, agreed to coffee at a small cafe near the bay, neutral territory far from their usual haunts. As she approached their table, she steeled herself for whatever came next. Unexpected grace. The waterfront cafe buzzed with weekend patrons, but Harrison had secured a corner table away from curious eyes. Valentina spotted him immediately, his posture rigid as he stared into his untouched coffee. He looked up as she approached, and the rawness in his expression caught her off guard. "Thank you for coming," he said, standing awkwardly. Gone was the commanding presence that dominated boardrooms. This Harrison seemed smaller somehow, more human. Valentina slid into the chair across from him, noticing his rumpled shirt and the dark circles under his eyes. "You wanted to talk," she prompted gently. Harrison's hands tightened around his cup. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since you left." He looked directly at her. "My first instinct was to fix this, to find the right combination of words or actions that would change your mind. Harrison," he held up his hand. "Please, let me finish. I realize now that's exactly what you were talking about. My need to control outcomes, to engineer solutions." He took a deep breath. "I'm not going to do that with you. Not anymore." Valentina felt her throat tighten with unexpected emotion. "The truth is," Harrison continued, "you're right about us, wanting different things. And rather than trying to bend you toward my vision, I should have been asking what you wanted." His voice grew quieter. "What we could build together, not what you could build for me." "I never expected this from you," Valentina admitted, studying the man across from her with new eyes. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Neither did I. Apparently, losing the most remarkable woman I've ever met has a way of forcing self-reflection." He reached into his jacket and placed a small velvet box on the table. "This isn't the ring. That's yours to keep or sell, whatever brings you closure." Curious, Valentina opened the box to find a delicate silver key. "It's to a property I purchased last year in New Mexico," Harrison explained. 50 acres of desert land. I bought it intending to build a personal retreat, but never got around to it." He pushed a folder toward her. "I've transferred ownership to you. No strings attached." Valentina stared at the key, speechless. "You once told me that you dreamed of designing sustainable communities in challenging environments," he continued. "This land gets 300 days of sunshine, perfect for your solar designs." "Why are you doing this?" she asked, genuinely bewildered. Harrison's expression softened. "Because true love isn't possession. It's wanting happiness for someone even when that doesn't include you." He stood, placing money on the table for their coffees. "The transfer documents are in the folder. My lawyers won't contact you again." As he turned to leave, Valentina called after him. "Harrison, wait." He paused, hope flickering across his face. "Thank you," she said simply, "for hearing me, for respecting my choice." He nodded once, his composure returning. "Be extraordinary, Valentina. Build something beautiful." News of their broken engagement hit the society pages the following week. Contrary to expectations, there was no scandal, no mudslinging. Harrison's statement was simple and dignified. "Ms. Reed and I have decided to pursue separate paths. I have nothing but respect for her brilliance and integrity." The gossip mills churned with speculation, affairs, prenuptial disagreements, family interference, but both Valentina and Harrison maintained their silence. In their respective professional circles, they spoke of each other with genuine admiration. At a charity function 2 months later, when a tipsy venture capitalist made a snide remark about gold-digging architects, Harrison's response left the room in shocked silence. "Ms. Reed walked away from billions because her principles meant more to her than comfort," he said coldly. "I suggest you reconsider your assessment of her character and your own." Word of the exchange reached Valentina through industry channels. She sent Harrison a simple text. "Thank you for defending my honor. His reply came hours later. Always. Separate journeys, the New Mexico sun beat down on Valentina's shoulders as she surveyed the construction site. 8 months had passed since her broken engagement, and the desert property had transformed from barren landscape to the beginnings of something revolutionary. Solar panels gleamed alongside rainwater collection systems, and the first 3 dome-shaped structures were nearing completion. The thermal testing exceeded expectations, said Dina Okafor, the environmental engineer Valentina had hired from MIT. These homes will maintain comfortable temperatures with minimal energy input. Valentina nodded, making notes on her tablet. The Desert Bloom Project, as she'd named it, had evolved from a personal retreat into an experimental community of 12 sustainable homes. Each would be offered to artists, scientists, and thinkers who committed to a year of collaborative work. On sustainability challenges, her phone buzzed with a news alert. Wells Technologies launches 2B Environmental Innovation Fund. Valentina found herself smiling. Harrison had been making headlines with unexpected business pivots, divesting from certain high-profit but environmentally questionable ventures, restructuring his philanthropic foundation to focus on climate resilience. That evening, as Valentina sat on the roof deck of her completed prototype home, watching the sunset paint the desert in gold and crimson, her sister's weekly video call came through. "You look disgustingly healthy," Camilla teased. "Desert life agrees with you." Valentina laughed. "It's clarifying. No distractions, just creation. And no regrets?" Camilla's expression grew serious. "I saw Harrison on Bloomberg yesterday. The interviewer asked about your project." Valentina's heart skipped. "What did he say?" "That it was the most innovative approach to desert living he'd seen, and that your work deserves international recognition." Camilla studied her sister's face. "He's changed, Val. Everyone's talking about it." "People can surprise you," Valentina said softly. 3,000 miles away, Harrison stood at the window of his Manhattan office, reviewing the final proposals for the Environmental Innovation Fund recipients. His COO, Richard, watched him with barely concealed curiosity. "We're really doing this? Committing $2 billion to unproven technologies?" Richard asked. Harrison turned, his expression calm but determined. "The old metrics no longer serve us. Profit without purpose is meaningless." "And this has nothing to do with Valentina Reed?" Richard ventured. Harrison's gaze was steady. "Ms. Reed showed me a blind spot in my thinking. I'm grateful for that insight. But this fund represents my values now, not an attempt to win her approval." Later that week, Harrison visited a community garden in Brooklyn where local teenagers were implementing an urban farming system. As he knelt to examine their innovative irrigation setup, one of the program coordinators approached. "Never thought I'd see Harrison Wells with dirt under his fingernails," she remarked. He smiled ruefully. "I'm learning that some of the most valuable insights come from getting your hands dirty." That night, for the first time in months, Harrison allowed himself to look at pictures of Valentina's desert project that had been published in Architectural Digest. The elegant domes rising from the landscape like natural formations. The seamless integration of technology and nature. It was quintessentially Valentina, bold yet harmonious, innovative yet grounded. Without overthinking, he sent her a message. "Your desert bloom is magnificent. Congratulations." In New Mexico, Valentina stared at her phone for a long moment before replying. "Thank you. I hear your environmental fund is making waves. The world needs more of that vision." It wasn't much, just a brief exchange of professional admiration. But for both of them, it felt like a door left slightly ajar rather than firmly closed. Full circle. 18 months after their broken engagement, Valentina stood nervously in the grand foyer of the United Nations headquarters in New York. Her Desert Bloom project had been selected as one of 10 global initiatives to be highlighted at the International Summit on Climate Resilience. As the crowd of diplomats, scientists, and business leaders filed into the auditorium, she spotted a familiar figure entering quietly through a side door. Harrison had aged well in their time, apart. His hair had more silver at the temples, and he'd grown a short, neatly trimmed beard. But it was the ease in his bearing that struck her most, the absence of the coiled intensity that had once defined him. Their eyes met across the room, and after a moment's hesitation, he walked toward her. "Congratulations on the UN recognition," he said, his voice warm but cautious. "Well deserved." "Thank you," she replied. "I heard your innovation fund has backed 3 of the projects being featured today." He nodded. "Including yours, though I recused myself from that selection process to avoid any appearance of impropriety." The awkwardness between them was palpable, but not unpleasant, like old friends finding their footing after a long separation. "How long are you in New York?" he asked. "A week, the summit, then meetings with potential investors for Phase 2 of Desert Bloom." Harrison hesitated, then said, "I know your schedule must be packed, but perhaps dinner one night? Purely professional, of course. I have some ideas about scaling sustainable housing that I'd value your perspective on." Valentina studied him, searching for any hint of the controlling businessman she'd once known. Instead, she found only genuine interest and respect. "I'd like that," she said finally. Dinner extended to 3 hours of animated conversation, not about their past, but about their current work, their evolving worldviews, the challenges of creating meaningful change in resistant systems. Harrison listened more than he spoke, asking thoughtful questions about her experiences in New Mexico. The most unexpected outcome, Valentina explained over dessert, has been the community aspect. These brilliant people from different disciplines living together, sharing meals, collaborating. It's created this incredible innovation ecosystem. Harrison nodded. "Connection matters more than I once believed. I've been learning that the hard way." "Oh?" Valentina raised an eyebrow. "Let's just say that commanding respect isn't the same as earning it," he admitted with a self-deprecating smile. "My leadership team staged something of an intervention last year, told me in no uncertain terms that my approach was stifling our best talent." Valentina couldn't help laughing. "I wish I could have seen your face." "I believe thunderstruck would be the appropriate description." His expression grew more serious. "But they were right, as were you." Later, as they walked along the waterfront promenade, a comfortable silence fell between them. The city lights reflected in the dark water, and a cool breeze carried the promise of autumn. "I never thanked you properly," Valentina said finally. "For the land, for respecting my decision, for not making our breakup into a public spectacle." Harrison stopped walking, turning to face her. "I didn't handle everything well. The night you returned the ring, I was cold, defensive." "You were hurt," she said simply. "Yes," he acknowledged. "But what came after? The self-reflection, the changes I've made, that's been transformative. In a strange way, losing you was the best thing that could have happened to me." 3 days later, Harrison visited the Desert Bloom exhibition booth at the summit. Valentina walked him through the technical specifications, conscious of his genuine interest in the details. "We should collaborate," he said suddenly, as they examined a model of the water reclamation system. "Not merge. I understand you need autonomy, but a strategic partnership. Your design vision with my fund's resources could accelerate implementation globally." Valentina felt a familiar tingle of excitement, the same she'd experienced when they'd first discussed ideas in Singapore 2 years before. "A partnership," she repeated thoughtfully. "On equal footing?" "Absolutely equal," he confirmed. 2 separate entities with aligned goals. Over the following months, their professional collaboration evolved gradually into friendship. Video calls to discuss project details often extended into personal conversations. Harrison visited Desert Bloom twice, sleeping in the guest dome and joining community dinners with the residents. Valentina attended the launch of his headquarters' regenerative energy system in San Francisco. 6 months into their partnership, during a sunset walk through the desert, Harrison reached for Valentina's hand. "Is this okay?" he asked softly. She interlaced her fingers with his. "Yes." They moved slowly this time. No whirlwind romance, no rush to define their relationship. Harrison purchased a modest home near Desert Bloom, but maintained his independence. Valentina expanded her work internationally, but always returned to the desert. One evening, as they sat on Harrison's porch watching a spectacular lightning storm illuminate the distant mountains, he turned to her with a question. "Do you ever wonder where we'd be if you hadn't had the courage to leave?" Valentina considered this. "I'd be living in a beautiful cage, increasingly resentful. You'd be running your empire, increasingly isolated." Harrison nodded. "We needed to break to become whole." "And now?" she asked. He squeezed her hand. "Now we choose each other freely, not because of expectations or impressions or societal pressure, but because we've seen the worst and best in each other and still want to build something together." When they married a year later, it wasn't the society event of the season, but an intimate gathering at Desert Bloom. The residents created a ceremony space in the central courtyard, with flowering desert plants and simple solar lanterns. Harrison wore linen instead of his customary suit. Valentina designed her own dress, elegant but unrestrained. Their vows reflected their journey, acknowledging past mistakes, celebrating hard-won wisdom, promising respect for each other's separate paths, even as they committed to walking together. As the desert stars emerged above them, and their gathered loved ones shared a meal at long tables set with wildflowers, Harrison leaned close to his new wife. "Are you happy?" he asked, a question he would have once considered unnecessary, even weak. Valentina looked around at the community they'd built together. Not a perfect, controlled environment, but a living, evolving creation that reflected both their visions. "Deeply," she answered truthfully, "because this isn't an ending. It's a beginning we've both chosen with open eyes." And in that moment, surrounded by the beauty they'd created from what once had been broken, they both knew that sometimes the longest route proves to be the only way to arrive exactly where you're meant to be.